And thanks for joining us on Face the State. I'm Clay Gordon in for Tracy Townsend. This week, those hoping to win your vote come May 3rd faced off in a series of debates at Central State University. We have team coverage of those debates, starting with 10 TV's Kevin Landers, coverage of the Democrats hoping to take Governor Mike DeWine's job.
The State House has been called by the FBI the most corrupt in the country.
From corruption regarding House Bill 6.
I will fire the public utility commissioners that Mike DeWine appointed that gave us that bill.
To attacking Governor DeWine's record on gun control.
Never in my worst nightmare did I think that the thing he was going to do was to actually make it worse.
Mike DeWine did make it worse. Signing that outrageous bill, as well as Stand Your Ground, is a stain on his soul.
John Cranley and Nan Whaley share similar platforms, and it was clear during Tuesday's debate. One area they do disagree is Cranley's plan to use revenue from legalized marijuana to grow thousands of jobs in the state and to rebuild the state's roads and fund public education.
Oh, nobody believes that but Mayor Cranley. Like every study has shown that just doesn't work.
Cranley says if elected, he would change the statute of limitations on rape to reduce abuse in the state. Whaley agreed. Both candidates are pro-choice, but Whaley says if elected,
I'll make sure that we have a pro-choice doctor as a head of public health in our cabinet.
Whaley dodged the question if she would reduce the state's gas tax. Cranley didn't.
Absolutely. Teresa and I would immediately, temporarily reduce the gas tax.
When asked about DeWine's victory of bringing Intel to Ohio, both agreed it was great, but wondered how the entire state would benefit.
The day that Intel was announced, every leader in every single region texted me or called me and said, where's Cleveland's Intel? Where's Toledo's Intel?
My plan is to grow the state from the ground up, to make sure that each major city has jobs.
Both candidates were asked about ending qualified immunity, which protects police accused of violating a person's constitutional rights. Whaley dodged the question. Cranley was clear.
So, Mr. Cranley, would you sign an executive order ending qualified immunity?
No.
Now, after the debate, Kevin Landers was able to ask each candidate questions.
First, I think a lot of people look both at you and John and find you have very similar platforms. How do you differentiate yourself from John? Number two, what do you believe most resonates with voters? Corruption at the State House, in which you're highly involved in terms of trying.
I'm not involved.
Not in terms of trying to fix it.
Thank you.
Trying to fix it.
Thank you.
And Intel. Which do you believe resonates more with them? The fact that Governor DeWine and brought Intel to Ohio, or do you think corruption resonates more with them?
Well, I mean, it's very clear, see, because you're from the Columbus Metro, and like Columbus Metro gets everything. The day that Intel was announced, every leader in every single region texted me or called me and said, where's Cleveland's Intel? Where's Toledo's Intel? And actually on the same week that Intel was announced, they actually announced they were pulling down 2,000 jobs in Toledo with the Peloton manufacturing plant that Governor Mike DeWine had already snipped the ribbon on, right? So there's a couple of things around the Intel piece we need to make sure. We are investing $2 billion as a state in that. We need to make sure they keep their promises, because what we've noticed with this leadership at the State House is they're all there for the ribbon cutting, but when the rubber meets the road, the good paying jobs a lot of times don't follow. And secondly, we've only seen one metro really see this growth from the State House. So, you know, there are issues around this, I think, for the rest of the state. And secondly, yes, I don't think anybody is pleased that we live in the most corrupt state in the State House, with the most corrupt State House in the country, according to the FBI. Because what we're seeing is we're paying for that every single month. And as you look at the median income of the state, of people's middle income, and how hard it is to try to get to work, to figure out childcare, to figure out the costs, they see a State House and a governor that really doesn't care. They're only interested in special interests and people that are lining their pockets. And I think both of them are really important in this race, frankly.
And how do you think you differentiate yourself?
Oh, sorry about that. Well, I do look a little different, right? Secondly, look, I'm the only candidate in this race, Democrat or Republican, that has been pro-choice my entire career. And that's an important issue, particularly when Roe v. Wade is likely to fall this spring, that the governor is going to be the last stop to make sure that women have access to health care rights and their decisions, and that there's access to abortion in the state. And the governor has a lot of say in that. So I think that's really important. And finally, I'm the only candidate, I think, well, me and Joe Blystone, who are not millionaires. I don't know if Joe's a millionaire, but everyone else in this race is. And look, I think we need to have people that work and are from the working class really fighting for working class folks, because people have lost their way and politics have gotten out of reach for regular folks. I think that's really important too.
What do you think resonates more with voters? Your platform weeding out, described as corruption in the State House, or Governor DeWine's victory of bringing intel to it?
Well, look, we're all happy that intel's coming. But what about Youngstown? What about Toledo? What about Dayton? What about Springfield? What about Appalachia? What about Athens? What about Chillicothe? Where's their corporate welfare? You know, eventually you run out of other people's money, which the Republicans used to say. One strategy is to just pay a large amount of money to bring companies to Ohio. My plan is to grow the state from the ground up, to make sure that each major city has jobs, has the infrastructure they need, so that you can live in Columbiana County, not have to live in a big city, but you have to have high-speed broadband to function in today's economy. You can live in Appalachia. There are parts of Appalachia that don't have running water. We're going to have clean energy investments across the state. The quality of life near Lake Erie depends on getting rid of the algae blooms. We're going to invest in clean water projects to get rid of the algae blooms. Investing in clean energy and people, and instead of driving young people away with Stand Your Ground, and you know, he's been a longtime supporter of banning gay marriage. I'm in favor of it. He passed a law that says government can stop farmers from doing wind and solar projects. He tells farmers they can't grow marijuana. He thinks it should be a crime. I think it should be a business. I'm on the side of freedom, and Mike DeWine's on the side of crony capitalism. HB 6 is just the greatest example, but there's so many other examples. And while I'm happy Intel's here, it can't be replicated because we're out of money. And so the only resource we have is not an infinite amount of money, it's the people of Ohio. And investing in, valuing diversity and inclusion, investing in education and clean energy and infrastructure, that's how you build a state.
Kevin Landers reporting there. It's important to note the Republicans running in the gubernatorial race did not debate. The four candidates were invited, though, but Governor DeWine backed out. Then the other Republicans followed suit. We asked Governor DeWine why he did not debate.
We've held more press conferences than any governor in the history of the state ever held. I'm available today. I'm available, every single week, once, twice, sometimes three times. So there's no lack of understanding about what my positions are. So that's we will also be having joint appearances. We'll be having joint editorial boards where we will all be there. People will have the opportunity to, I assume, watch that on a video feed. So there's going to be opportunities for people to compare and contrast where we stand, and there certainly are differences.
Senator Rob Portman's U.S. Senate seat is also up for grabs. There's a long list of people vying for your vote. Here's a look at the Democratic candidates. Anchor Tracy Townsend has the topics they tackled at Central State University.
The debate for the three Democrats in this primary was not just an opportunity to face off, but an opportunity to stand out. They tackled everything from the war in Ukraine, how much you pay for gas at the pump, and because we are here at Central State University, they talked about student loan relief.
We have done a good job of getting the Ukraine some of the armaments that they need to push back. Look, Putin is a butcher. He's a killer, he's a war criminal, and he is slaughtering innocent people. And I think we actually need to do more.
Harper was quick to claim her competition may make decisions based on money, with a claim that he's taken $400,000 in corporate campaign backing.
But we also have to keep in mind about what we've been through over the last 20 years as a country, where we have seen a lot of military intervention that perhaps moved too quickly without always having the full information. And I want to be clear-headed.
The debate offered a view of the candidates' positions on close-to-home issues, ranging from student loan relief and the economy, all the way to the environment and gun violence.
Our communities are, especially the African American communities, have a ton of guns. that are just available for homicides, robberies, and accidental discharge. We have to make sure that these guns are off the street.
Yes, I, again, supported in the House of Representatives universal background checks, closing the Charleston loophole, closing the gun show loophole. I think it's critical. We see what's happening on our streets. Everybody should feel safe in the community that they live in.
We need to ensure that we, yes, are implementing strong federal protection like universal background checks, preventing people from having access to weapons who aren't in a position to manage them effectively, but then also and importantly addressing the root causes of violence. Things like the fact that people don't have enough money.
3 diverse points of view, all 3 hoping to prove they are worthy of winning a spot on that November ballot. From Wilberforce, Ohio at Central State University, Tracy Townsend, 10 TV News.
And now let's hear from the Republicans who want to represent you in the U.S. Senate. Anchor Andrew Kinsey was there for that debate.
I am a Marine. I am a fighter. One by one on the debate stage.
And I've achieved my American dream. I want to make sure your kids and your grandkids achieve that same American dream.
The Republican candidates for U.S. Senate pitching to voters why they should be the one to represent Ohioans in Washington, D.C. ahead of the primary election.
I'm a mom on a mission to take our country back.
It's a race fueled by a desire to replace retiring Senator Rob Portman. During the nearly hour-and-a-half-long debate Monday night at Central State University, the candidates addressed a wide range of questions, which included the war in Ukraine. Every candidate said they're against direct action.
At the end of the day, we've got tons of problems here. The best thing that we can do to ensure the strength of our country is to focus on our own problems.
Putting much of the blame on Democrats and the Biden administration.
Let me be very clear. Joe Biden is the legitimate president of the United States. My problem is he's a failed president.
But also taking on issues from abortion to immigration.
We need to finish the wall, we need to secure the border, and we need to enforce the law.
I think illegal immigrants should be deported, period. While finding fault, Gibbons and Mandel couldn't avoid their own criticism after this on-stage spat 2 weeks ago went viral.
That's not unacceptable in a U.S. Senate race.
While former President Trump is not on the ballot, the candidates brought up his name and policies more than a dozen times.
Joe Biden is weak. I will be a point of strength, just like Donald Trump.
As all but one candidate steps over each other to get his endorsement that they assume will get them victory.
Andrew Kinsey with that report. All those candidates are paying big money for ads on television. Brandon Lewis from our National Verify team looks into whether politicians can lie in those ads.
Primary election season is coming, and that means there will be political ads everywhere you look. And some of those ads will inevitably make outlandish claims. Some Verify viewers emailed us to ask if candidate ads have to tell the truth. So let's verify. Are political ads required to be factual in order to be aired on broadcast television? Our sources are the Federal Communications Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, and University of Minnesota political science professor David Schultz. The rules for political ads are very different than typical consumer products, and we want to be clear up front that the answer to this question is no. Political ads are not required to be factual in order to be aired on broadcast television. In fact, the law allows politicians to say almost whatever they want in a commercial. This is because political ads are regulated by the FCC, which applies just 2 rules. One is that all candidates have the same opportunity to buy commercial time on stations. And 2 is that politicians can say whatever they want. Accuracy is not one of the rules, although TV stations could run a disclaimer explaining the rules before airing an ad. The only consequence for politicians who produce misleading or false ads is in court, and that's only if they defame someone, which is rare and hard to prove.
I think the rationale behind it is what? The idea of saying that candidates get to say what they want, and what? The voters get to sort of, through the marketplace of ideas, decide what's true, what's false.
That marketplace could also include news stories or fact checks like Verify stories explaining what's true and false. Schultz says you should always read the fine print on an ad to see who is funding it and do your own research on a candidate to see if what's being claimed is really true. With your Verify, I'm Brandon Lewis.
And do you have something you want our Verify team to look into? Email us at verify@10tv.com. Starting Tuesday, you can vote for the May 3rd primary, but not all the races will be on the ballot. What's happening now to prepare for this week and what worries election leaders have about holding a second primary. Early voting for the May 3rd primary is set to start Tuesday. The battle is going to look a little different because of the ongoing controversy over new redistricting maps. 10 TV's Kiana Dyches shows us what's going on to get ready.
Everything in the machine room's been tested and cleared.
Inside the Franklin County Board of Elections office, signs in place, machines ready, and stickers sorted for the May 3rd primary and for early voting to begin next week.
We double check everything. We have a cart to make sure everything goes where it belongs.
It's a race against time getting ready to welcome early voters.
Because Monday we have to send out absentee ballot requests to voters, UOCAVA voters as well as people who've requested them. We've put in the finishing touches on those ballots, and we're waiting on the Secretary of State to give us the okay to do that.
On the May 3rd ballot, voters can expect to see the gubernatorial race, U.S. Senate races, local races, and the congressional primary. Now things left off the ballot will shake things up. What voters won't see this time around, contests for Ohio House and Senate seats. As the redistricting battle continues, a second primary with those races is not off the table. But Sellers says having a second primary would cause some issues.
There's obviously a cost involved in running a second primary. Statewide, the numbers I'm hearing are $20 million to run an additional primary.
He says they'd also have to find more help.
We're going to have to get more of those poll workers to work a second election.
As well as places to vote.
We are in about 320 voting locations throughout the county. We're in about a third of our locations are in schools. We're in churches. A lot of things they do in the summer, repairs, renovations. Churches have camps.
No matter what, this team is up for the challenge.
We take an oath where this is our profession. We will certainly pull this off.
Kiana Dyches, 10 TV News.
A federal court panel decided not to delay the election at this time, but that panel has reserved the right to intervene if the redistricting battle isn't settled by April 20th. Black Ohio State leaders discussed the redistricting issue during an event earlier this week. Members of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity gathered at the state capitol to highlight issues Black Ohioans face every day. That's why Dayton Representative Willis E. Blackshear Jr. is pushing for voting rights.
These aren't Democrat or Republican issues. These are everyday life issues. And it's important that we have elected leaders in office who are advocating on our behalf to move our communities forward. As a fraternity, we will keep our eye out on some of the pieces of legislation that deals with voting, and we will also continue to monitor the redistricting process. We want voting to be as free and as accessible as possible, and we want districts that truly represent our communities. There is too much at stake, and it is important that we continue to be civically engaged and encourage others to be civically engaged as well.
A bill that would ban certain teaching concepts is causing controversy here in Ohio. House Bill 327 would ban teaching topics like sexuality, gender identity, and racism. It's still in committee and it has not been voted on. Stonewall Columbus calls the legislation dangerous.
In this particular moment, what we are doing is we are working closely with our local community partners to ensure that they are focused on appropriate messaging, that we understand that House Bill 327 is a direct attack against LGBTQ identities as they've added language around transgender young people and transgender identities.
Supporters argue this is not about sexuality and it's about topics that are inappropriate in school. Schools that break the rules would have funding withheld. Catalytic converter thefts are on the rise, especially in Ohio. We look at a loophole in the law that detectives say allows this type of crime to continue. Welcome back. A warning from police: if you park your car or business truck outside, thieves are sliding underneath and sawing off an expensive part of your vehicle. Reporter Kevin Landers explains how a major bust in Franklin County may help slow down the thefts of catalytic converters. But detectives say unless lawmakers fix a loophole in Ohio law, the crimes will continue.
They hit these a lot because they're up high.
off the ground. They can get under real quick and get out.
Susan White is talking about her fleet of employee transport vans.
This side you can probably see better.
She showed us where thieves crawled under one of her vans and sawed off the catalytic converter, which is part of the truck's exhaust system.
We've had 6 of them gone.
6 vans, 6 catalytic converters. Inside a converter are precious metals like platinum, rhodium, and palladium, some worth more than gold. Today, the catalytic converters under White's fleet are protected with a steel cage to prevent thieves from taking them. They weren't cheap to replace.
It's about $1,500 per vehicle.
Groveport Police Detective Josh Gilbert tied the catalytic converter thefts of Susan White's vans to 15 others throughout the city of Groveport. All of them, he says, were at the hands of this man, 41-year-old Tommy Cox of Columbus, a father of 5 and a grandfather.
Basically, Mr. Cox was paying individuals to go cut catalytic converters as well as cutting them himself.
Before his arrest, police say Cox was the leader of a catalytic converter theft ring that spanned these 5 counties, and he was able to find his victims using a $30 piece of technology that's used to find your car keys.
So this is a simple Apple AirTag.
Detective Gilbert says Cox would place the tracking device under someone's car and wait for them to park.
We found this one in Muskingum County. Okay, it was underneath a vehicle that was cut. The converter was missing.
Cox lived in this South Columbus home. It's heavily surrounded with surveillance cameras. Police say he used them to help escape capture at least once. When SWAT did catch him and his girlfriend, Shannon Vance, they found guns, a credit card making machine, along with catalytic converters. Police connected Cox to more than 1,000 of them. But how could he sell so many? Ohio law only allows one person to sell 1 catalytic converter per day per scrapyard.
Apparently he found this loophole. He's one of the first ones that we've come across that have found this loophole.
That loophole allows anyone who forms a business with the Secretary of State's office to sell as many catalytic converters as they want. And it doesn't require people to prove ownership, which may explain why Ohio ranks number 8 in the country for the most catalytic converter thefts.
This does affect everybody because it drives up insurance rates and things of that nature. So in a sense, everybody's a victim.
So what's being done to stop the thefts?
I've had about 8 to 10 of these catalytic converters stolen from a property that I own.
State Representative Bob Young introduced a bill in September of last year to make it harder for crooks to sell bundles of catalytic converters.
If the scrap metal dealers, frankly, were policing themselves, they wouldn't be looking at additional regulations.
Young says his bill would close the scrap metal loophole.
The biggest thing the bill's going to do is require that scrap metal dealer to show proof of ownership for every single catalytic converter that they're purchasing.
Detective Gilbert says the law could be better by eliminating cash payments to scrappers. As for Tommy Cox, he's sitting behind bars with 32 felony counts and a bond of $4 million.
He got a higher bond than most murderers.
As for people like Susan White, she has a message for those who park outside.
For what we've spent, you need to have them in a secure place where people can't get in.
Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
So what can you do to protect your car if you can't park in a garage? Well, we have tips from the International Auto Theft Investigators. They say engravers, specialized metal labels, and high-temperature exhaust spray paint can help deter thieves. Lastly, make sure you have comprehensive insurance to protect your car in case of theft. Voters have had the opportunity to vote on this in November, but first, the Ohio House and Senate must approve the measure. Well, thank you for spending your Sunday morning with us. I'm Clay Gordon. Catch Face the State with Tracy Townsend every Sunday morning. And remember, if it affects you and your family in Ohio, we are here to make sure those accountable face the state.